Why is commission my favorite objection? Well, the reality is this. Most of the answers to all the objections are based in, the thought process that we're really trying to do what's best for people. We're not trying to pull anything off. We're not trying to get somebody to do something they shouldn't do. We are simply communicating truths and we're trying to help people understand the realities of the market. And what I like about, for example, handling the objection, do you have a buyer for my home, is being honest with people. And the honesty isn't, well, I don't know, I haven't had a chance to see your home yet, although I've certainly used that many times. The honesty is, well, the truth of the matter is, or the reality is, there aren't nearly enough buyers for all the homes that are listed for sale. In a market like Toronto, for example, there are 30,000 homes listed for sale, and in January, there are only 2,600 buyers. So, no, we don't have a buyer for your home. In fact, if you had hired me to go find a buyer, it could take months, just to find even one single buyer that would make a reasonable offer on the property. So there's a truth involved. And the question is whether you want to sell or not and see what it takes to actually find that buyer. Well, commission is really no different. There are some truths involved in discounting of commissions and why we do it and why, a seller doesn't want to go down that road. And the reality is we've all done it. The first thing I want to do is I want to confess I've done it. I have taken discounted commissions from time to time. I was trained by some great trainers, so it wasn't something I had to do very often. I have taken listings that were overpriced at times. I've taken listings where I had to settle for a shorter listing period at times. But I've always done that. I've always compromised, for lack of a better word, when the listing I was about to take was a quality listing and I knew it was going to pick up some unbelievable traffic. It was the right listing. It was in the right place. It had the right level of, price range. And, I knew that if I, were to market or advertise the property, I was going to get a lot of calls. I knew that if I held an open house, which I didn't do often, it would certainly be the home to hold open. I knew that over the course of, 4 or 5 months, even if the home never sold, I was going to pick up some possible listings and certainly a few other buyers because of it. We've all done it. What we've got to recognize, though, is why do we do it? Because we know that even if the home doesn't sell because it's overpriced, even if it doesn't sell because it's under commission, even if we don't really work too hard to, do what it takes to get the home sold because the seller's unreasonable, even if we don't communicate on a regular basis because, the seller's the one in control, we know that we're going to make money. And so we've taken the listing. Now listen, discount brokers, they've just made a business model out of, the bait and switch or the loss leader concept, which is basically we'll take all the listings and make very little money on the listing side, if any at all. But because of all the inventory, we're able to draw a massive number of buyers into the organization. I have top producers. We're not talking companies right now, but I have top producers that have upwards of 50, 100, 150 listings. And the reality is with all their inventory, they've got literally hundreds of buyer leads every single week. And when you get the listings, the buyers come. Well, discount brokerages as a business model have more listings than they know what to do with that aren't selling, but they're picking up massive numbers of qualified buyers and the agents are making all their money on the buy side. Now, I think you know this already. I think they know this already. I think there's a place where when people hear truth, they initially say, really, that makes sense. And so even with the commission, we're going to talk about some basic truths as we go through, the commission objection. Now, there's a few different levels of handling the commission. There's handling the commission objection when it gets brought up right in the front end of a conversation, and I'm going to show you how to handle that. There's handling the commission objection when it's a major portion of your prospecting call, which is what we're going to go over today, the script for that. And then there's handling the commission objection in more detail when you're on a listing presentation. For that particular, teaching, I suggest that you get the market report for sellers. Go ahead and write this down. Call me or email me as fast or even at coachbobfitzgerald@gmail.com and ask me for the market report for sellers. Ask me for the listing presentation and then ask me for the commissions report. I've done 4 or 5 pages on commission alone. It's called the commissions report. So if you don't already have those 3 things, those 3 tools, even if you're listening via audio and you have no idea when this was recorded, Hopefully, my email address will still be working. Coach Bob Fitzgerald, again, at gmail.com. What I want to jump into today is how to handle this on the prospecting call. I'm going to take you right through the commission objection. I'm going to talk to you, based on the script, and then obviously we'll send the script to everybody that doesn't have it. So, number one on the script, you're going to see, as always, when we get an objection, we are going to repeat and affirm. We're going to validate. We're going to align with them. So somebody says, well, what's your commission anyway? The beginning of a call, let's say it's an expired listing, it's a for sale by owner, I'm asking them about their property, and they say, well, what's your commission? So I might just validate that. Well, obviously, commissions are important to you. Well, yeah, they're important. Well, listen, as you know, commissions are negotiable. And we can talk about commission after I've had a chance to see the home and determine what it's going to take to get it sold. But if you did sell the home, where would you go next? Are you staying here locally or are you leaving the area? I'm going to go right back into the script wherever I left off. So what I'm going to say is, well, listen, as you know, commissions are negotiable. And they are. I didn't say I was going to negotiate. No, then as you know, commissions are negotiable, and we can talk about the commission after I've had a chance to see the home and determine what it's going to take to get the home sold. Now isn't that the reality? I mean, until you've seen the home and really can talk about what it's going to take to actually sell it in today's market, we can't simply just put a commission up there. And that's when it comes up early in the call. It's not really that big of a deal. Half the time when somebody brings up commission, it's not the only thing that they're thinking about. And so we can easily just, move away from it, pick up where we left off and go right back into the script, in terms of trying to get an appointment. Now, let's say they cling to it a little bit further, and we actually have to discuss it. So, they say, well, listen, you don't need to even bother having this conversation if you're not willing to discount your commission. So then I go to number two. Well, John, let me ask you this. How familiar are you with the condition of today's real estate market? Now, you'll notice that with a lot of the objections, we're following the same track. We are validating what they say, so it doesn't feel like it's us against them. And then we're asking them how familiar they are with the condition of the real estate market. And here's why. The bottom line is this. A discounted commission 2 years ago, the home would have probably sold. A discounted commission during the boom. I mean, if FSBO puts up the for sale by owner sign, and they'll sell faster than we could have gotten the sign up on the listing next door. The reality is there was a time where you could discount the commission and the home is still going to sell. There was a time that you could do it on your own and the home would have still sold. But we're not in that time anymore. So we want to ask a question about whether or not they're with the times. How familiar are you with the condition of today's real estate market here in Richmond? How familiar are you with the changes we've seen in the real estate market here in Denver? Wherever you are, we want to ask a question, and then as always, we need to shut up. Now, they're going to give you some basic knowledge of the negativity or the fact that the market has changed. They might bring up the commission again as if it doesn't matter. So then I'm going to say, well, then listen, Steve, as you know, there aren't nearly enough buyers for all the homes that are listed for sale. In fact, right now, only 1 out of every 15 homes listed here in Richmond is actually going to sell each month. Now, Steve, do you want to list your home or do you want to actually sell your home? Now, what we did is we gave them some information based on the answer to their question, then we asked another question. So A, as you know, there aren't nearly enough buyers for all the homes that are listed for sale. Okay, let's quantify that. In fact, right now, only 1 out of every 20 homes that's actually listed here in Ocala is actually going to sell each month. We're going to break down the monthly supply of inventory. Some agents at that point like to use the market as a whole. In fact, there are 30,000 homes for sale in Toronto and only 2,600, actually purchased in January. We've got to create the sense of the fact that you can list the home, but that doesn't mean it's going to sell. Never in the history of the last, 30 years has having the home listed meant less actually selling the home than in most markets today. So we're going to follow that with a question. Steve, did you want to list your home or did you actually want to sell your home? Again, selling isn't telling, so we need to ask a question to get them acknowledging with their voices that selling is different than listing. Now, rule of thumb for Bob Fitzgerald is this. If you ask a question and you don't get an answer, ask again. Okay, let me say that with more authority. If you ask a question and don't get an answer, ask again. So, did you want to list your home or did you actually want to sell your home? Well, listen, we're not paying more than 4%. No, I appreciate that. I understand commission's important to you, but I'm just curious. Did you want to put your home on the market or did you want to make sure that it actually sells? Well, obviously, we want to sell the property. I've got an answer out of them. It's critical that you ask twice or three times if you need to before you get an answer. There are a lot of you that know my scripts and dialogues inside and out. You know what questions to ask and you've memorized them and you've rehearsed them. You're just not listening. So when they don't give you an answer, you move on and then wonder why it didn't work. Okay, so ask and get an answer. So now that I've got an answer, well, does it surprise you to know that most of the homes listed for sale don't actually sell in any given month? All right, well, if you want to list the home or sell the home and they say sell it, well, if you want to sell the home, then does it surprise you to know that most of the homes listed, watch in this particular case, perhaps at discounted commissions? What's great about people that discount their commission is 99% of them overprice the home too. What's great about an expired listing who's already done that, they've already tried their commission, they've already tried the agent that'll take it, they've already tried their price, and they're a lot closer to actually doing it to begin with, the right way this time. So does it surprise you to know that most of the homes listed for sale don't actually sell month in and month out? Well, we knew not much was selling. Ours wasn't selling either. So, Steve, let me ask you this. Are you familiar then with the techniques we use to actually get homes sold in this type of high inventory market? And now we start the closing sequence again. So watch, Steve, how familiar are you with the condition of today's real estate market here in Denver? Well, obviously we know it's changed quite a bit, but we just, we need to get every penny we can out of the home. Well, I sure appreciate that. I mean, a lot of people have that situation. As you know, then, there aren't nearly enough buyers for all the homes that are listed for sale. In fact, right here in Denver, only 1 out of every 13 homes that's listed is actually going to sell each month. So, Steve, do you want to list the home, or did you actually want to be sure that it sells? Well, we need to make sure it sells. Well, does it surprise you to know that most of the homes listed don't actually sell month in and month out? Well, and that doesn't surprise us. We just don't want to pay a full commission. No, I appreciate that. Are you familiar with the techniques we use to actually sell homes in this type of high inventory market? Well, no, I'm not. Well, when would be a good time to get together and show you what we do? Would Thursday work or would Friday be better? Well, we don't even need to meet if you're not going to cut your commission. Okay, so let's say we go through section two, which I just did, and they still aren't convinced. So now we go to section 3. The reason I broke up 1, 2, and 3 is because I want you to realize there are 3 different levels of argument that you can make based on how much you need. Remember, one is, as you know, commissions are negotiable. We can sure talk about commission after I've had a chance to see the home and determine what it's going to take to sell it. And then we just move on and hope it doesn't come up again. Number 2 condition, well, most of the homes that are listed don't sell because there aren't nearly enough buyers for all the homes. So, get out of your head that we're just going to list the home. We got to look at what it's going to take to sell it, and that's not enough. So now you're probably dealing with somebody who's bent on saving the commission and probably had 4 or 5 offers already, either friends of the family or actual people, in the marketplace that have offered to discount their fee. Listen very carefully before I go into number 3. It's not enough sometimes to only show somebody the value or the benefit of actually working with you doing it your way. Sometimes we have to actually show the catch or the scheme involved in why something the other side of the coin is too good to be true, and that's what we're going to do here. So number 3, I'm going to go into the 3rd section if I need to. Well, listen, Steve, do you know why an agent might actually agree to discount their commission? So I'm trying to close and they say, well, we don't even need to meet with you if you're not going to discount the commission. Well, Steve, I sure appreciate that, but let me ask you this. Do you know why a real estate agent might actually agree to discount their fee or their commission? Do you understand why they do that? Okay, and what happens when we ask a question? We shut up, right? So that's exactly what we need to do, is let them fumble around a little bit, trying to figure out and sound stupid about why somebody be willing to do that. Okay, then we're going to start the educating process again. And remember, we're going to continue to ask questions. So I'm going to explain why they do it. Well, listen, Steve, if they sell a home like yours and they only get 1% on the listing side, let's say they give 3% to the buying agent, they take it at 4, they get 1% on their end. Well, listen, after expenses and splits on a home like yours, they might end up with $1,200. I mean, does that sound like a lot of money to you? So the first thing I'm going to do is going to break down the math. If they sell the home and they only get 1% on the listing side, it's a $200,000 home. Well, after expenses and splits, it's a $2,000 commission. They might only get $1,200 of that. Does that sound like a lot of money to you? And again, selling isn't telling, so we ask a question. When we ask a question, we shut up. And if they don't give you an answer, you ask again. Well, it doesn't really matter. I mean, there's agents that are willing to do it. No, I appreciate that, Steve, but does that sound like a lot of money to you? Well, yeah, it's a lot of money. It's $1,200. All right, well, I appreciate that. Now go to B. So if the home doesn't sell, which we've just made the case, remember in section 2, where you can list it or you can sell it. If the home doesn't sell, and they spend 6 to 8 months picking up buyers off the advertising or any open houses they might hold, and they get 3%, or in this case, $6,000 every time they sell the home, wouldn't you do whatever it takes to get the listing? So first of all, does that sound like a lot of money to you, $1,200? And I said, well, listen, if the home doesn't sell, and they spend 6 months just picking up buyers off of the advertising and the open houses, they're going to make 3%, or literally $6,000 every time they sell a buyer a home. So if you were a real estate agent, wouldn't you do whatever it takes to get the listing? So what we're going to do is make the case that, if I took the listing tonight, I'll get paid $1,200 if the home sells, or I'll get paid $6,000 2 or 3 times if the home doesn't sell, simply picking up some buyers off of the sign and the ads. Wouldn't you do whatever it takes to get the listing if you had that opportunity? So now we start breaking it down for them again. Again, see, watch. Again, in today's market, where less than 10% of the listings are actually selling, do you really want to hire an agent who has more incentive not to sell the home than they actually do to get it sold? And again, you asked a question, so you have to shut up. Remember, them coming to their own conclusions is more powerful than you making an argument based on a few statements. So think about that. So in today's market, with less than 10% of the inventory actually selling, remember, you said you wanted to sell the home, not simply list the home. Do you really want to hire an agent that has more incentive not to sell the home, than to actually get the listing sold? So when would be a good time for me to see the home, show you exactly what it'll take to get this listing sold? Would 6 work, or would 7 be better? I'll start the closing process again. So what do we do here? One, we said, well, as you know, commissions are negotiable. We can talk about commission after I've had a chance to see the home and determine, what it's going to take to get it sold. Well, 2, all right, not enough. Well, how familiar are you with the condition of today's real estate market? Well, then, as you know, there aren't nearly enough buyers for all the homes that are listed for sale. In fact, right now, only 1 out of every 13 homes listed is actually going to sell each month. So did you want to list the home, or did you actually want to sell the property? Well, does it surprise you to know that most of the homes listed don't actually sell month in and month out? Well, how familiar are you then with the techniques we use to actually get homes sold in this type of high inventory market? Well, I understand that, but do you know why an agent would agree to discount their commission to begin with? Well, listen, if they sell the home and only get 1% on the listing side, well, after expenses and splits, they might make $1,200 on a property like yours. Does that sound like a lot of money to you? Well, if the home doesn't sell and they spend 6 months picking up potential buyers off of the advertising and the open houses, well, they'll make 3% on the buy side, or $6,000 every time they sell a home. So if you were a real estate agent, wouldn't you do whatever it takes to get the listing? Well, again, in today's market, where less than 10% of the homes that are listed are actually selling, do you really want to hire an agent that has more incentive not to sell the home than to actually get it sold? All right, so then when would be a good time for us to talk about what it takes to actually get a home sold? So I just took you through the script once without all the commentary. There's only one other thing I want to leave you guys and gals with, other than read the commission report, because it's more detailed than the script. This class was about the script. Okay, but what I want you to do is also want you to understand there's an integrity issue. And it's very difficult for people to negotiate with integrity. Some of you come from cultures where everything is negotiable and they expect you to negotiate. And if you don't, you're the freak for not negotiating. But there's one thing that even in a negotiating culture, that is not negotiable. It's usually integrity or ethics. So what is the integrity behind the commission? I had no problem as an agent saying, listen, John, the reason my fees are set is because it's an integrity issue for me. If I had different prices for different clients, it wouldn't take long before I'm out of business. I don't want to, offer a lower price to one client than I would for the next. there's an integrity issue. I mean, how would you feel if you found out that, the products and the services that I offered, there was 15 different prices based on, who asked for the bigger discount? The reality is commissions are an integrity issue for me. So don't be afraid to bring that up too if you just want to really make an indefensible argument in terms of, when you're dealing with a friend or when you're dealing with a family member, you're going to get the listing. It's not a matter of argument as to why they shouldn't list with somebody else at a discount as much as it is why they shouldn't ask you for help. So I might say to my friend, listen, John, we've been friends a long time, and you know how much, I appreciate the opportunity to help you sell the home. But the reality is, for me in my business, commission's an integrity issue. And the reason why is real simple. If I have different fees for different clients, it's only a matter of time before they find out, and then people get really upset with me, and there goes my referral business. So I've just made it a practice in my business to give great service at the same price for everybody. Just one of those integrity issues I can't negotiate with. And there you have an answer for a friend or a family member or anybody else that, doesn't need the whole argument. So you've got plenty to work with, and you haven't even listened to the market report for sellers, the listing presentation itself, or more importantly, read the commissions report. So commission isn't really that big of a deal. It's not that difficult to get if you, A, play the numbers game and are not attached to the outcome. B, remember it's all about them. This has nothing to do with you. And C, just don't take no for an answer. When somebody's better off listing with you the right price, knowing that you're going to communicate and negotiate strong on their behalf, than the guy that can't even negotiate his own commission is simply looking for another few signs to get out there so he can pick up more of his buyer business, which is where he makes most of his money, or she. So there we have it. Good luck. We'll see you later this afternoon. And for the rest of you, make it a great week. Bye-bye.